Guys, in this video I'm going to teach you guys about looping. So looping is going to be great if we want to do something over and over again and we don't want to write out that code many times. So let's get started. So I'm going to first introduce you guys to the range function. So the range function, you just type in range and you pass it a number. So range of 5 will generate you the range of numbers from 0 to 5, but not including 5. So how does this help us? Well, this helps us if we want to do what's called a for loop. Now the for loop, this is going to do something multiple times in a row, but for a specified amount of time. So let me write it out and I'll explain it, how it's going to work. So for I in range of 5, I. So let's run it and so let's see what we get. So we kind of get, when we run this function, we get the numbers 0 to 4, and that's pretty much all we get. So let's see what's going on from. So I mentioned before that the range function gives us a number from 0 to 5, and not including 5. So we kind of see here that the result is matching up with the range function. So you guys could probably guess that since the range function gives you a list, so to speak, of numbers from 0 up until 5 but not including 5, this for loop is kind of going through each element of this larger list or collection, and for each of these elements, right, so for each of the numbers from 0 to 5 not including 5, we're saying I, and I just means, we're just like kind of like returning the value like we have seen, like right now with the number 5, x equals 5, x. That's what we mean by I, right? We're kind of just saying, okay, there's the value, right? Like here's the value x, here's the value I. So we're going through the range of 0 to 5, not including 5, and we're outputting the value of I. And now I, it's a variable, right? And we mentioned that variables can take on multiple values. So I is taking on the value of all the taking on all the values of the range one at a time. So first in this for loop, I is going to be equal to 0. Then once we return this I is going to be equal to 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. So likewise, if we want to do something, if we want to print out the numbers from 1 to 100, well, let's start off with a simpler example, 0 to 99. What I can say is for I in range of 100, I, and we'll get all the numbers from 0 to 99. It'll take a little bit to print, but there you go. Now, say I want a more custom list, right? So say I want to say, okay, I want the range of numbers from 1 to 10, for example. So the range function takes in more than one parameter, or when I mean parameter, I mean passing in a value here. So the range function, right, we're used to having it to 10, but now I can kind of specify my interval, right? So if I say 1 to 10, so not like but 1 comma 10, meaning I'm going to go from 1 to 10. But remember, the ending of the range is always not inclusive. So if I really want 1 to 10, I have to do 1 to 11. And my for loop will look like the following. 1, 2, 3, 4, up until 10. Okay, cool. So now I can spice it up even more. Say I want only the even numbers in my range, right? So say I want every even number from 1 to 10. What I can do is the range takes in a third argument. And what I mean by argument is I mean like a value that you pass it. So the range can also take in what's called the step, and that's how much you increment I by. So by default, whenever we go through one iteration of the for loop, like when I return the first value of I, which is 1, I'm gonna go to the next value in range. But I can specify what that next value is by passing in 2. So let's just see what this outputs. I get, every odd number, and I'll do even numbers in a quick second here, but I start from 1 going to 11, not inclusive, and since I start at 1, I output 1, and this guy right here, and then I jump 2, so like I jump by 2 increments here up to 3. So that's how I can do the range function, and that's how my for loop works with respect to that. To do even numbers, again, follow the formula. If we want every even number from 1 to 10, well, that means I know I'm going to start at 2, and since my step size is 2, then I'm going to be going from 2 to 4 to 6 to 8 to 10. So I could just output it like that. And there I get it. So with that in mind, we can now we don't always have to output numbers in our for loops. We can do operations. So as I have x equals to 1, and I want to keep on incrementing the value of x, what I can do is the following. I can create a for loop, and say I want to increment the value of x, 10 times. So what I can do is I can say for I in range of 1 to 10, or more, if I want to do something 10 times, I could just say in the range of 10. Instead of doing anything with I, because we don't really care about the value of I right now, I could say x is equal to x plus 1, and then I can say x, right? I can return the value of x and see what the current value is. So if I do this, notice that I enter my for loop, it's 1. In the first iteration, I'm going to increment by 1, and then output what the current value is. So that would be 2. And I repeat this 10 times. So just because I have this variable I can use for loops to do an operation a set number of times. And that's exactly what you get. Although range goes from 0 to whatever the number is non-inclusively, if we want to do something 10 times, well then we use range 10. If we want to do something 14 times, we use range 14. So that gives you a good introduction of how to use range to do an operation a certain number of times. Say I have a list, and let's see, I'm going to say L is equal to 1, 2, 3. And I want to go through every value in my list. Well, instead of saying for I in range, we could say for I in L. So we can say for every I in the list, we're going to output I. And that's exactly what we do. We go through 1, 2, 3. So we take the list and we could do a for loop through the list. So for loops and lists work. The final type of looping I'm going to introduce you to is a while loop. And a while loop is going to execute a condition as long as a statement is true. So say I have my value x equals 5. And while x is less than 10, I want to do some things, right? I want to increment x plus 1 and say I want to output x. So let's see what this does. So while x is less than 10, so let's consider the first iteration here. X is equal to 5. Is it less than 10? Yes. And notice that we're still using this index syntax. So, right, for I in L, right, we're going to, like this line, this indented line depends on the parent line above it. So because this is true, we're going in here and we're saying, while x is less than 10, we're going to take a look at our value x and increment it by 1. So now x is 6, and we're going to output it. And we're going to keep on doing this until, hey, let's get to the point where x equals 10. Or sorry, x equals 9, right? So we go in here, x is equal to x plus 1, so that means since it was 9, it's now going to be 10. And now I'm going to output 10. But now I go back to my while loop, right? Because I always go back to my while loop once I'm done with the indented code. And I ask myself, is x less than 10? And the answer is no. So once this is false, I stop executing the code inside here, and I continue on. That's for loops, while loops, and we explore doing a for loop with a range and with a list. Looking forward to your questions below. Have a good one, guys.